Hello everybody, this is Tristan.
This is Ken.
And we're here to tell you today to follow us on many, many things.
You can follow us on iTunes.
You can follow us on Everything Is Fine With These Ruined at Libsyn.com.
You can follow us on Twitter,
which is at eifnir. You can follow us on Everything Is Fine With These Ruined at Tumblr.com or Tumblr.
That's too long. You can follow us on Podomatic,
which is Everything Is Fine With These Ruined at Podomatic.com.
Still too long. You can follow us on Patreon,
which is pretty simple. Patreon.com/eifnir.
Alright, and then soon we are working on getting a YouTube channel. You can follow us on the Cube.
That's a tube. It's tube. YouTube.
Oh, it was a typo.
You go through a tube.
So what's YouTube then?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we're going to be on there under YouTube, I guess, .com/Everything's Fine With Ruined.
Yeah, if listening to our audio tracks is too convenient for you, you can go to YouTube and watch our video, which is going to be a picture of all of our sexy, sexy faces.
And you can see us there on YouTube.
You'll be watching us, we'll be watching you, it'll be great.
Yeah.
It'll be a big old showdown.
Yep.
So follow us on whatever is the most convenient for you, or inconvenient if you like to play on hard mode.
Hey.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what Cyberpunk is. Take the Blue Podcast, and you'll return safely in your home listening to your...
Give me that!
Oh, but you... Oh. Never mind.
I mean, your podcast is blue anyway.
It's a little blue.
Except for when you go into Halloween stuff, and then we had a red banner instead of a...
Take the red pill.
That one too.
You can't take both of the pills.
Both.
That's
what's gonna do.
I don't even know what that does.
What's gonna fucking do, bro?
No one ever takes both of them.
I took both pills. What's gonna do?
Is there another pill? Is there a yellow pill? Is there a maybe pill?
There's a purple pill inside you, bro.
Oh, we're done here.
D12 right. Represent.
Good night, everybody.
I've seen so many. Anyway,
today on eifnir, I'm Neo.
And I'll be Akira.
All of Akira.
Program. I'll be Canada.
Canada!
Tetsuo!
Canada!
Bring back milk!
Bring back milk. Get some milk! And some eggs!
Make sure to bring back bread from the store! Okay.
But today we are going to talk about Cyberpunk. So, Tristan, you want to tell our fine... Well, unfortunately, no one can be told what Cyberpunk is. So, do you want to tell them what Cyberpunk is?
If I tell you what Cyberpunk is, I'll have to kill you. Or Chapel will. Either one. No. So, just to lay some groundwork as to why we're doing this topic. If you have listened to the show for the last month, you will know that... me and Greg, we do a review show called Sideshow Review. That is the sister show to this show. Same banner, same hosting, the exact same thing. Just it's a side thing, hence Sideshow.
It's a mini show for the main show.
Yeah, we were just review movies. So we've been doing theme months, and of course the theme of this month should have been "We're fucking snowed in." So
snow movies, yay!
Yay! But instead we had the cold, unfeeling worlds of Cyberpunk worlds to deal with instead. So we started off with A Scanner Darkly. We reviewed that pretty favorably. Then we reviewed Johnny Mnemonic, which was not as favorably as A Scanner Darkly.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so this month we actually did with a friend of the show, Chapel. And we've been, like I said, we've been snowed in, so we hadn't had a chance to really get back together and review more movies. Which is too bad. And I wanted to actually give you guys, I guess, as almost an apology in some ways, give you guys a separate show based on Cyberpunk stuff, because we haven't really touched into it too much. Like, Buddy Cop Month was 4 weeks of nothing but Buddy Cop films and big rompy comedy action films. And we gotten 2 Cyberpunk films this month, and we haven't even done the good shit yet. That's the thing.
Yeah, you guys kind of started with sort of the kind of like the ground level.
Yeah, we wanted to get Keanu Reeves out of the way right away. Yeah, like that was a plan there because he's been in a lot of Cyberpunk films. Let me tell you.
Yeah, no Matrix, unfortunately, but I know you have other plans for that.
Yeah, Matrix is going to be its own. We have a separate genre we're going to look into called Jacked In, which Matrix has actually deals with that a little better. But it is still cyberpunk in its own right.
But so this little section here, Tristan was saying it's possible that one of the Topicasts a month will be dedicated to the month's genre of whatever Sideshow Review is doing at that time.
Yeah.
Whether or not we continue this trend, who knows? But it seems like it's not a bad idea to sort of talk a little bit more in depth about the genre rather than getting hung up on any individual film.
It's true. Yeah, so basically the idea with Sideshow Review was going to be, I was going to look at the subgenre of what we were reviewing that month as a series of movies. I realized with Buddy Cop Month that I couldn't really give you what I really thought of that genre within those movies, because we were so focused on the actual review of those movies that it didn't really work out that way. And I wanted to... I have a lot to say about Buddy Cop films as well, but, it's currently Cyberpunk month, so let's do Cyberpunk films.
Yeah.
And tropes. So, so that's the groundwork. And so what actually is a Cyberpunk film? Well, it is a film, or just a genre, that is set into either the near or far future. Either one.
But generally the future.
Generally the future.
Yeah, you usually don't go backwards in time for Cyberpunk, of course.
With the exception of Johnny Mnemonic, which is actually going to be set in 2020, so... Yeah.
Well, it's funny because some of this cyberpunk sort of fiction looks forward to the future, but some of those futures have already passed.
Yes.
Because we are just now past those points.
Yeah, or even like A Scanner Darkly was set pretty much in 2010 or so, roughly around there. That kind of stuff. So basically, there are a lot of ways to define cyberpunk films, and I kind of split it into two main categories. Basically, you have your Western cyberpunk stuff.
Okay.
Your Johnny Mnemonics, your A Scanner Darkly's, New Rose Hotel, those kinds of films.
And what would you say is the defining characteristics of those types of films?
Neo-noir, basically. So those films have a love of the 40s in terms of the way of storytelling, like the grittiness, the way everything's kind of black and white, but with a little bit of color splashed here or there. Okay. That kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah.
I personally love that look, but that's the way those movies usually look. They have a lot of dark clothing. I guess techno-goth is kind of the best way to really describe that as well.
Techno-goth actually elicits the exact image I had in my mind, so good job.
Yep. Lots of sunglasses and that kind of stuff.
Leather trench coats.
Dark suits.
Sunglasses, dark sunglasses.
Yep. For instance, Johnny Mnemonic, a guy has a cybernetically implanted groat wire, which is basically a laser groat, in a long fingernail that he pulls out.
Right, of course.
So that looks gothy as hell. And there's a bunch of guys with face tattoos and strange hair. Basically Marilyn Manson looking kind of dudes, for lack of a better term. Yes, that's more your Western cyberpunk stuff. That's more situated in the Americas.
Okay.
You also have a kind of middle ground area with Eastern European things like that. It's not as big, not as popular. It mostly takes up the same tropes as the American stuff. But the other one that's huge and is in some ways bigger than the American one is cyberpunk stuff that's actually set in Japan instead. So there's actually a Japanese cyberpunk genre. And that's your Akiras, your Ghost in the Shells. Blade Runner actually is even though it's set in LA, has a lot of influence of Japan in it.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Yep. Basically, there's a lot of Chinatown and that kind of stuff in Blade Runner. There's a lot of similar tropes there where they focus on the more they focus on the world as being dark and gritty, but they don't give you like dark sunglasses, that kind of stuff. Sure, you get like, you know, dark clothing, you get black suits, you get stuff that looks very serious, that kind of stuff. But with the Japanese stuff, you get a lot more pastels in terms of the way it looks.
I like to think of it as the neon sort of thing. You get a lot of neon lights.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's colorful, but still a little dark.
Yeah, like their stuff is a lot more into like the bubbly. They add a lot more bubbliness to it, where it appears happier than it actually is, and that's the way they kind of make those worlds. Like, for instance, Psychopass is good for that, because that is a cyberpunk show. And in that show, like, there are basically chibi caricatures walking around that are your police officers. And they are adorable and big and cute, but at the same time, you know, there's a dude under there or a robot under there who's actually carrying a dangerous weapon.
Yeah, like, the idea is that they use these, like, childish mascot type characters to sort of gloss over the fact that there's actually like a police officer under that costume, or that there's like police in this area. Just, you know, it makes people more comfortable and they can't actually see the enforcement.
Totally. Yeah. So basically, both subgenres of that subgenre, though, which is getting a little complicated, but, you know, do have their own crossroads. For instance, for the most part, they still deal with transhumanism. They deal with police states, machine worshipping, cybernetics. The idea of who actually are you. And Chappell kind of said it best in the first review episode, in which he says, Cyberpunk is basically like if you take... In a cyberpunk world, you'll be able to download your brain into a system, but you'll never be able to get it back into your body. Like, that's the kind of thing. You put a brain in your box, and you're fucked.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, that's the kind of thing where, like, you know, you can remove bits of your brain, or you can move your consciousness and put it somewhere else, but it's never going to be the same afterwards. I equate it to, like, a very... It's almost demonic in a sense.
Yeah. Another common element with Cyberpunk is this idea of the dystopian future.
Yes.
So, again, we're talking about this as, like, it is often in the future.
Yep.
But as far as the dystopian future goes, usually it's a future where technology is supreme.
Yes.
Or, you know, technology is just advanced further than our current level of technology. But somewhere along the way, something went wrong. Either we got bogged down by wars, we're under the rule of a tyrannical government, et cetera, et cetera. That tends to be a common theme in Cyberpunk. And then a lot of Cyberpunk stories either revolve around living in that world and just sort of like being a part of that world, or they revolve around trying to make the world either a better place or trying to save the world, or like taking down the corporation or taking down the corrupt whatever. Yeah.
And a lot of this can actually be seen in many of these movies. For instance, Johnny Mnemonic is about bringing in the corrupt corporation. And, like, for instance, A Scanner Darkly is kind of also about that, but it's also about living in this strange world where, you know, there's a very mind-altering drug and, you know, weird ways of policing people, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. Then you have, like, your Blade Runner, where it's not about really saving the world. It's you're just kind of, in many ways, you're just sort of getting this, like, slice of life of this world, and just seeing what it's like to be in this world, and then solving a mystery within this world, which, like, has maybe some greater implication, but is fundamentally just kind of another day in this guy's life, even though it's you know, kind of the worst day.
It is definitely the worst day.
Worst few days. Or whatever. Is it over a day? It's like several days.
It's a few days.
Yeah, it's a few days.
It's a week or so.
It's a pretty shitty week for him.
Yeah.
But definitely a more interesting week than what he would be used to.
Yeah. Or even, like, for instance, Ghost in the Shell, in which they're trying to track down terrorists. So it's actually the system working against the people who are trying to overthrow the evil government. But it's the same system that's actually in there to, you know, help people live their lives. And, you know, in that case, it's not actually a really dystopian future. It's more of a It's not utopian, but it's kind of in the middle.
In that way, I think that... so there's this other distinction where, when we were doing some research on this, there's a point where... there's the concept of transhumanism where you have this idea where technology is good. Like, that's sort of like the future where technology is good. I feel like in review of this, Ghost in the Shell is definitely more of that transhuman sort of side of things, but then looking at some cyberpunk elements within a transhumanist world.
Yeah.
Because you have this world where, in Ghost in the Shell, so we might as well talk about specifics now. I guess we've probably like gone out about the generals of this for a little while.
I would say so.
Yeah, so in Ghost of the Shell, the basic concept is that you can actually essentially download your body or download your consciousness into a body.
Yep.
And these bodies are like more or less human.
Yeah, it really depends.
Like they're kind of like your android-y, cybernetic-y kind of bodies.
Yep.
They look pretty convincingly human, although, like, you know, when all the clothes come off and everything like that, you can kind of see, oh, well, there's the seams and everything. This is clearly a robot of sorts.
Yeah.
Or in some cases.
It's robot body, human mind.
Exactly, yeah. But the idea, is that you have this human mind. And then, of course, the concept of the ghost in the shell comes up throughout the series. Now, you were planning on just doing the movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the series itself, I can't... It's been so long since I saw the movie.
I hadn't actually watched Standalone Complex, to be fair.
Standalone Complex is quite good.
I've heard that. I need to see it.
But this idea with the ghost in the shell, wherein, like, what is the consciousness... Like, if you can just download... Like Chapel had said, like, you know, this is a world where you could download your consciousness into another thing. You could, like, download it into a computer or effectively another body, but it's never going to go back home. You're never going to get your body back.
Yeah.
This idea... So, and in this case, it's like the ghost in the shell, the ghost essentially being the human spirit or the human mind. Like, where does that go when you go into this body? Like, and then, of course, you got this body, which is sort of like the shell. I think I'm oversimplifying this like quite a bit. Obviously, you'd want to see this movie or watch the series.
Well, of course, yeah. But at the same time, you're doing a good job of actually showing how it actually is. You're right.
Yeah. So you end up having this transhumanist thing where you can just I think you have to have the money for it, and I think that like a lot of the main characters in this they have these like robot bodies, like they have like their sweet android type bodies.
Yeah.
But like they're expensive. Like not everyone is like going around like getting these new bodies. I think there's still quite a bit of like normal human people in this world.
Oh, there are, plenty of them.
And then of course like the dystopia sort of falls on this sort of thing with like the people who are you're just human. Like you're just like a meat bag basically.
Yep.
I know they have a term for it. I don't remember what it is.
I can't remember what it is either. But yeah, like it's and Ghost in the Shell. The whole thing comes down to the fact that, like you said, when you download your consciousness into your new android body, the problem there is that you're still you're no longer what's referred to as wetware. You're now actually a piece of hardware with a consciousness behind it. You actually become an AI at this point.
In many ways, yeah.
Your brain is not actually human anymore. Your brain is now dead, but your consciousness somehow still exists within this body. And the problem with that happens alongside in Ghost in the Shell, a lot of it boils down to we can just control these bodies because, of course, we can. You're just cybernetics. That's all you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When your body is that, anybody could take control of your body and then commit various crimes with your body. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what you say. If I'm in control and you're not, well, then too bad. I can do whatever I want.
Exactly.
And that's where the scary part of the transhumanism comes from in Ghost in the Shell. And there are plenty of other very scary parts of transhumanism in general in cyberpunk films. In a weird way, I equate cyberpunk to a bit of a it's existential horror. I was going to say body horror because in a weird way it is, but it's mostly existential horror of what if I don't actually exist anymore. What if I do just kind of go away, but my body's there, but I'm not actually there? It's a very, it's almost like a weird art house thing where it's like, what if I'm not actually there, but I am there, man?
Yeah, it's like, can I truly be said to exist if I don't have a body any longer? And
that's kind of thing where cyberpunk films do get a bit of a flack for trying to be more than most moviegoers want to see. So they're not really artsy per se, but they are definitely they're a little pompous sometimes.
Well, actually, okay, we kind of skipped over. Actually, we've done a little bit of a disservice here because we kind of skipped over sort of a very important part of all this.
Oh yeah.
Well, we should be talking about, or at least briefly about. So, like you said, there's a lot of like philosophy and stuff that kind of goes in this, and we're sort of skipping over the fact that we can look at where cyberpunk originated from, and it originated in fiction and novella.
Yeah.
You have your probably the most famous would be Asimov.
Yep. Isaac Asimov, that's right.
Absolutely. So, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is a classic story, and that's what Blade Runner is based on.
iRobot as well.
iRobot, which doesn't have as great of a movie adaptation.
Sadly enough. But...
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
But his fiction he's passed on, right?
He's dead now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
he was
his
right in the 30s, so
yeah. But his fiction is very very philosophical, and then you go on into things like when does Neuromancer come out?
Oh, I have it right here. 1 second.
That's years after Asimov, as I understand, though.
Neuromancer, where you at?
But so you end up getting a lot of these the cradle of cyberpunk comes from philosophy and such, which I think is one of the reasons why you get a lot of this philosophical...
Neuromancer was written in 1984.
84, yeah, so much later on.
Oh, also, when you're looking at cyberpunk, there's three authors you should really look at. Isaac Asimov.
Absolutely.
William Gibson.
Okay.
And Osamu Tezuka.
All right, so let's throw down a little bit more name dropping here. So with what was the second guy?
William Gibson.
So with William Gibson,
who wrote Neuromancer.
Oh, so he was the writer of Neuromancer, right? Yep. Okay. All right. So was there anything else of note offhand, or
Scared Darkly?
Scared Darkly. Oh, of course. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he wrote. He actually in the world of cyberpunk fiction, he is probably the biggest name. Asimov, of course, is the most famous for creating sci-fi of today, but in just this genre, Gibson is the biggest name, I would say. He's written a lot of books.
And so the third fellow you were saying was?
Osamu Tezuka.
All right, and what does... I think actually I already know. Tezuka has created what?
Astro Boy.
Ah, yes.
So there you have a very different version of it all. It's kind of in the same lane as Asimov, but with Astro Boy, what you have is... a boy, the Pinocchio thing. Whereas you have a robot boy who basically wants to try and be human, even though he's a walking death machine.
And this is actually an interesting sort of version of cyberpunk that you end up getting this sort of thing where... So we talked about, say, in The Ghost in the Shell, where you have humans downloading their consciousness into bodies.
Yep.
Arguably they are dead, but their consciousness survives. They are literally a ghost in the shell. This, on the other hand, is sort of the other way. So, say an example, the origin of Astro Boy. It's funny, actually, I never really considered Astro Boy in this vein before, but it totally is. It never even occurred to me. So, the origin of Astro Boy, you have a scientist.
Yep.
His son dies.
Yep.
The scientist cannot deal with this. He's already working in robotics and artificial intelligence.
Yep.
And he decides to make his boy. He decides to, from scratch, make a child that he can call his son again. But he doesn't really like the results, and he kind of tries to abandon Astro Boy. Yes.
Yep, that's right.
And then, as I remember, his father kind of becomes a villain?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
So Tenma is actually a villain.
Tenma, that's what it is. Yeah, Tenma.
So there's Astro Boy. Astro Boy is a big factor in all this. A bigger factor, for me anyway, is that Tezuka is also the creator of Blackjack. And if you want to talk about the gritty side, the transhumanism side of it all, Blackjack is a story which takes... There's less robotics in it.
Okay.
But the idea is more so that, surgery becomes a bigger deal. And the idea here... how can I put this? Basically, when you move around a person's parts, are they the same person?
Okay. Yeah.
That's the big deal there. And that's where the transhumanistic side comes from in blackjack. I can give examples, but I'm not as well versed in blackjack. But blackjack is actually a very well known cyberpunk film / comic / I think I had a show at one point actually, but
it sounds familiar. I'm not actually really too familiar with blackjack, though. Actually,
I will show you.
I am far more familiar with Astro Boy.
That guy.
Oh, that does look familiar.
Yeah, he's a surgeon. It's yeah. If I showed you there was a manga film from the early 2000s.
Okay,
it had a trailer. I could show you that, and you'd be like, "Oh yeah,
that one." Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, Tezuka is a fascinating, creator of these worlds. Phoenix is also a big one as well. And yeah, those are some big works there. But I think what we should do right now is to break down some of the major tropes besides transhumanism in cyberpunk films.
Well, and again, I think transhumanism is kind of intended to be a little bit more on the good side of things.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, if you look at Cyberpunk...
It can be bad, but yeah.
Oh, it easily can be bad, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, Ghost in the Shell is transhumanism, but, I mean, that can go bad horribly.
Yeah.
You have people who can just straight up control your body because it's not your body anymore.
Oh, or even like in Psychopaths, they use transhumanism in an interesting way when they have the... one episode when they have the avatars and the internet.
Oh,
and
yeah,
basically,
actually,
there's a killer going around killing the these big named internet personas off.
Yeah, and then basically taking their personas, like they're like living as them through the internet, like using their avatar and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Psychopaths is actually another great version where you have this like utopian dystopia.
Yes.
So you have this like this future where like everything is supposed to be really great and like everything is like running on time and. Like you can tell if someone's going crazy and they can get help real easily because, you have like the mental health agency that goes around and helps people.
Yeah.
Or fucking blows you up if you went nuts.
Yeah, if you
just get fucking killed.
If you have turned over to a criminal, which they measure with a meter, basically, like, yeah, if your number goes from 299, which is the maximum you can be at not criminal, to 300... You're now a criminal. We can just kill you.
Yeah, you are a threat to society, and therefore you are just going to be executed.
If you're a latent criminal, we can just stun you and cure you of your criminalness. If you're a criminal, we just kill you because you're now worthless garbage to us.
Yeah, well, you're going to commit a crime. You're dangerous now, so we have to get rid of you.
Yeah, and they measure that by stress level. So if your stress level is too high, they just shoot you.
Yep. And the civil system figures it all out for them.
Yeah, but the idea with that is they actually have characters in that show trying to subvert the civil system and make sure that people aren't being shot and killed at all points. Except that one part in season 2 in episode 4 when they just open fire on a whole crowd of people. That was bad news. Anyway.
So going along with this, so you kind of have these two sides of a very similar coin. You have like transhumanism, and you have this dystopian sort of future.
Yeah.
Transhumanism, I think, is kind of like the opposite of cyberpunk, yet at the same time, they're like on the same coin. So one can easily thread right over into the other.
Yeah.
You can have a transhumanistic cyberpunk world and vice versa.
Yeah.
Other very common aspects in cyberpunk, you end up having your artificial limbs, cybernetics. Yep. I have my optical implants because my eyes were destroyed, or I don't have eyes, but I have optical implants. Or I have like a chip in my head that allows me to access the internet, and
yes.
we communicate via theta waves.
Yeah, like they're. Actually, in terms of the way that you're describing the cybernetics there, a couple of games, actually, they're pretty ideal in that sense for you to check out for cool cybernetic stuff. One would be the Deus Ex series. For sure. So Deus Ex Human Revolution and this normal, regular-ass Deus Ex, all about, using your cybernetics to hack into systems, you're a corporate espionage spy kind of guy, etc., etc., and Syndicate, the original 1988 game, and the one that came out a couple of years ago. So back then, in 1988, that one was all about controlling. It's more of a tactical kind of shooter one, which is actually done by Peter Molyneux.
Oh yeah, no way.
Yeah, but that game was all about building your own team of cybernetically enhanced like spies and breaking into corporations and downloading data. And selling on the black market, that kind of stuff. But in the one that came out a few years ago, the cool thing was that what the game turned you into, and this is where Cyberpunk kind of has some groundings in fantasy, basically gives you internet wizard powers.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So you're a character whose name I can't remember, because I think it's it's Miles Kilo was the character's name.
Miles Kilo.
Yeah.
What a name.
I know. But, so the character is a corporate espionage expert. And the thing is, he has a computer chip in his brain that allows him to actually just magically, by the wave of his hand, move things around. Like, let's just basically, it'll access like cameras or guns, or it'll access tables that can move in or out, or little bits of the environment they can just change and give yourself more cover just by snapping your fingers. Go like, I need this thing to move here. It's obviously on a servo. It's obviously activated by computer chip, so I can activate it through my hacking chip.
Yep, for sure. Yep.
And there we go. Now it's moved it.
Yeah.
Or like, I hacked into this guy's gun and it's going to explode. Or I hacked into this guy's chip in his brain and now he's actually on my side. That kind of stuff.
Right.
And so a lot of the cool stuff that does come in Cyberpunk films, and that's in games, of course, actually seems like magic in a sense because it's so highly technological. And that's one of the things that happens with those films.
Yeah, for sure. And at the same time, like the idea is that it doesn't go so far out of the realm of possibility as far as technology goes that it seems completely impossible. But by today's standards, it's usually more advanced than what we've got. We may not have a chip in our head, but we have fucking smartphones. And that's something that Cyberpunk and speculative fiction never fucking predicted. Nope. I mean, with the exception of, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's true, yeah.
In a way, but I think that was meant to be a literal, book rather than... Or was it like a tablet slate? I don't even remember.
I think it was a tablet slate, if I recall.
Yeah, well, regardless. I mean, then you got, your Star Trek and stuff like that. The actual cybernetics to it all is very much a fascinating work because you can do so much with the way you portray the actual technology in those worlds. One of the ones that I always kind of come back to, it's a weird one because it's not quite a cyberpunk genre piece, I should say. But Battle Angel Alita, it's more actually post-apocalyptic than it is cyberpunk, but even though it has elements of both. But the idea there is that kind of the same as Ghost in the Shell, but in Battle Angel Alita, your brain is actually still a flesh and blood brain. Well, I guess not so much blood, but flesh brain that you've now implanted into a cybernetic body or an android body or whatever you've done. And in Battle Angel Alita, the stuff there is disgusting and gritty, and basically when the author draws somebody blowing apart, even though they are cybernetic, that's the limb that gets shot off or chopped off or whatever it is. That is totally a piece of a robot, but when it's drawn, it might as well be organic because it just when the guy draws it, it's drawn in such a way that it's disgusting looking. Yeah, you got oil and joints and stuff like that just fucking flying off like crazy.
And that's one of the ways that's one of the ways these films and comics and other things depict that kind of stuff, where sometimes it's just really gritty and gruesome looking. Other times it's sleek and perfect. Like for instance in one of the ones I always come back to was Equilibrium, in terms of your dystopian worlds. But the technology there is very much very streamlined, very trim. It's very much a world where everything is kind of perfectionally, laid out, where it must be everything must be symmetrical, that kind of thing. But yeah, the way things are depicted is very interesting. It's a fascinating way to look at it. Or even in Ghost in the Shell, actually, they try and keep the technology inside the body as much as possible until it has to come out. The movie is famous for having a scene in the very first 5 minutes of a guy going up to a computer, and he's going to go type in the computer, but his fingers like pop out of the joints.
Oh yeah. He's got like little his and then he just sort of like tapping with these little like tiny wires and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he doesn't have to type with fingers. Why would he do that? He's got little tiny robot tentacles.
Yeah, exactly. Like his hands just kind of come apart, and then he has little tentacles.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like
way better than having hands.
Yeah, kind of. But he also has hands. That's the thing, because they all just kind of come back into his hand. And so it makes you look as human as possible without making the world look organic.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the kind of thing with like it's. The idea of, I guess, mystique / like a mirage is very prevalent in these kinds of genres, in which it's always trying to fool you. There's always a veil over something where it's like, even in Blade Runner, the idea of replicants, like, they look as human as you or I, but they are evil androids, more or less.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And or well, are they? It's the point of Blade Runner. But
I mean, that's so we focus a lot on technology, which is obviously a big part of Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
but there's a couple other elements of Cyberpunk that
like what?
Might get overlooked at times. So we have this like technological modifications you can have, but you can also have genetic modifications.
Ah, yes.
Yes, so you then get into things like, I'm going to say Gattaca.
Yeah.
Where you end up having this world where we have transhumanism, but not in like a technology... Well, technology still drives the transhumanism in this because we need this technology to be able to figure it out. But this is a world where you can essentially have a child, and everything about that child can be essentially pre-programmed.
Yeah.
They use advantageous mutations to make certain children just... So say, for example, there's a great line in that that I'm probably going to screw up, but I'll get the gist of it. Wherein they have like this performer, he's performing like a piano piece. And then afterwards they're talking about it, and they're like, yes, that's a piano piece that could only be performed by an 8-fingered pianist. So if you think about that, this person was, before they were born, someone decided, parents or otherwise, they were going to have 8 fingers that was selectively mutated into them so that they would have this extra advantage in playing the piano. Now, I mean, there's some pretty excellent piano players out there, but imagine any of those piano players and they suddenly have 6 more digits.
Yes.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
So you end up getting this world here where I believe it's been a while since I've seen Gattaca, so if I screw this up, someone feel free to destroy me on Twitter.
Sounds good.
That's at Hassan@twitter.com. That's how Twitter's work, right?
That's not even his handle.
That's totally how it works.
It's at King Tentacle.
Yeah, sorry. So if you have a problem with anything I said, go at King Tentacle at Twitter.com.
Yep.
So the main character is a person who was a natural birth. So this is still a thing that can happen. You can still have a natural birth, and you don't end up having this like selective breeding thing going on here.
Sure.
And the story sort of surrounds essentially this normal person living in this world where everyone is genetically modified. Mutated, I was going to say mutated, but that's not too far off. But everyone is genetically modified to be more than a human could be. I mean, again, an 8-fingered pianist. Like, that's just like... that's incredible as far as, like, if you were going to play a piano. Like, you would think, having extra fingers or toes or whatever, that's a bad thing. You wouldn't want to happen. That's a mutant. That's a mutation. You would want to, have that corrected.
Right.
But in this, it's like, they see that, well, no, there's an advantage right there you could have. Like, this person is otherwise, it's not suffering, or at least they don't go into this, I believe. They're not suffering any other mutations of any other kind that are... in any way disfiguring or in any other way the word's escaping me, but they're not suffering in any other way because of this.
It's not limiting to them at all.
Yeah, exactly. It's at some point before they were born, someone just went into the DNA, programmed a couple things differently, and voila, you have this like perfect piano player who has 8 fingers on both hands.
That's cool.
Yep. So this is another example here where you have technology is guiding this future and guiding your transhumanism here, but your transhumanism isn't dependent on having like a sweet cybernetic arm or having like internet implants in your brain.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. The other one I actually want to talk about besides that is Scanner Darkly brought up a very interesting one for us, which was actually transhumanism through drugs.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, in Scanner Darkly, there's a drug which I can't remember the name of it now, but 'cause that's my first and only time seeing that movie was, a few weeks ago. But the way it works is that this drug, the more you take it, the more it fucks with your mind, like any of the drugs do. But with this one, it's such a weird drug in that the more you take it, the more you actually lose your memory. So what this does is plays on the trope of Alzheimer's, is of the whole idea of, once you have changed enough of your memory, and once you've changed enough of who you used to be, are you even still considered the same person as you used to be back then?
Right.
And in this movie, what it does is it gives you what may actually be a false life for the main character. Like the current life he's living is absolutely 100% real, so there's no question there. But it gives you flashbacks and gives you little lines from him saying that, like, for instance, the house that they're living in the movie is actually the house, supposedly, that Keanu Reeves' character, lived in his entire life.
Sure, yeah.
And according to the flashbacks, he had a family. But for some reason, they are gone now. The question there is, the drug, did the drug just basically make up an entire life for him? Because that's a thing it can do. Like, this drug can totally just give you an entirely new life because you're so whacked out of it that you may have thought basically in the past, maybe you were a CEO of some crazy corporation, or you were just a plainclothes cop, but you had a family, like the main character in this movie is, or that kind of thing. Basically, like it's through the drug you change your life inadvertently.
That's kind of really similar to, along the same vein, I might as well bring it up. That's kind of similar to the fundamental elements of Total Recall.
Yeah.
So in Total Recall, you kind of have this like synthesis of that and say like you're downloading Ghost in the Shell sort of thing, where you go to this place. I think I can't remember what it's called. The process itself, I think, is called Total Recall.
Yeah, it's called Recall.
Yeah, it's Recall. Yeah,
Recall is the company, actually.
Sure. Yeah. And you download a fantasy.
Yep.
You could download the memories of like a 2-week vacation in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Or you could download this like fantasy where like, you were a private eye, like you were a detective and like you solved this like incredible mystery and you like survived death and
or you can get your ass to Mars.
But and in this case here, what ends up happening is like rather than him going there, getting the memories and leaving and saying like, wow, what a nice thing that was, he ends up waking up half the way, part of the way through, with the memories mixed in with his own, and then suddenly there's this thing of, oh no, maybe my memories were previously overwritten, and oh no, I don't know what's going on, what's real, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Where does Recall begin, and where does my life end?
Yeah, I actually do like that, because in Total Recall, what he actually is a sleeper agent. And so he... Basically what happens is when he has his memories of Mars, it ends up triggering... it triggers a past memory of his in which he was actually on Mars doing some sort of spy work. And yeah, that gives him enough to kind of run away and start realizing that his whole life is a sham, etc., etc.
But then it turns out that he was this is obviously spoilers for this, but then it turns out he was a double agent on himself.
Yes.
He was a double agent of his own self.
Yep.
His
McQuaid.
Oh my god, so ridiculous, but so great.
It's a crazy film, but it's awesome. It's a classic.
Alright, so what are some tropes we haven't touched on? So we touched on the cybernetic cyberpunk. We've touched on meatbag cyberpunk.
Yep. Let me just bring up some other stuff here.
We have some dystopia. We have some utopia. What do you think is lacking here in our cyberpunk rundown?
Well, let's see. We touched on the styles. We haven't really touched on the actual... not so much on the actual computers. That's a big deal as well.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
So a big one I want to talk about actually is what's referred to as wetworks. And what that is that basically a person is a computer. Yeah, so basically a person with a genius-level intelligence or something of that like is hooked up to a mainframe or something like that. And you are now actually the computer for this entire system. Kind of like in Psycho-Pass with the actual way Sybil works. Spoilers, of course. But
and then, or alternatively, like in the Matrix, where everyone is hooked into this big system, and everyone is simultaneously a battery to maintain the system, but is also trapped in this.
I like that one actually because they are actually just an energy source, not even really useful in terms of the way that the machine works itself. More like, we just need them for power. That's good enough. and
then they realized that it was better to give everyone this supposed utopian world, or this normal world, where everyone was actually. Have you ever seen the I can't remember what it's called, but it was this little Matrix short films sort of thing. Yeah, it was
the Animatrix.
The Animatrix. That's right. So they're in that they actually have a couple little history bits in there, which I think is really neat.
Yep.
But so this idea where they gave people I think it's that they gave people utopia and they rebelled against it.
Yes.
So they gave people mundiety and they just fucking eat that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just find that so incredible because it's with utopia, it's we're always so pessimistic that we'd be no, something has to be wrong. Yep. Something's got to be wrong with this. There's no way that we can just have a utopia.
Yeah.
And they were right. They're to an extent.
So actually, one of the cool ones in the Animatrix is the guy that breaks through the Matrix by running so fast. That guy.
Oh right. Because, I remember that.
The thing was that you're right. They fed him utopia because he was a world-renowned runner.
Right.
And it's I'm really good. Holy shit, my life is a sham.
Yeah, right.
I gotta run so fast I can break through the Matrix. Or like Mr. Anderson / Neo. The reason why he lived such a crappy, mundane life, they may have even knew that he was he's the one or whatever.
Well, it's funny because it's I'm not sure they could have known that, but at the same time,
probably not. But
yeah. But you end up getting this thing where he is in such a mundane life, but then he's still trying to break out of that.
Yeah,
he's no, there's a conspiracy and there's a thing going on, and he's right apparently.
Clearly.
Whereas, anyone else would be considered a fucking nut job.
Follow White Rabbit. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, the other one I wanted to look into... Well, that's the Wetworks thing I want to look into, right? Yeah, so Wetworks. The cool thing with that, and some of the tropes I want to... Some of the ways this works is really interesting. For instance, in Akira, they are trying to harness the powers of, telekinesis / telepathy. That's in Akira. So that's, they're trying to actually, use these people as weapons to fuel war. Or in, like we talked about in Johnny Mnemonic, there's a Wetworks computer in that movie. But it's not a human. It's actually a dolphin.
Oh, okay.
That one's kind of awesome. So what this backstory is there is that the dolphin, Jones...
is his name Dolphin Jones?
No, just Jones.
That's too bad.
The name is just Jones.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, or Jonesy, I believe it is. But yeah, basically, this dolphin was actually a soldier for the Navy, and what he is basically strapped out and just tuned up with a ton of gadgets and cybernetic implants. So basically, what they did was send him on recon missions and assassination missions for submarines and that kind of stuff. And this movie has the gall to actually say that this dolphin turned on its master and then somehow, for some reason, joined up with the low-techs, which are the guys that are kind of rebelling against technology and that kind of stuff, joined up with them in order to fight technology and the evils of the corporations and that kind of stuff.
Technology!
And he's perfectly happy just sitting in a tank in some scummy-ass water, flapping his slippers and being a computer for them. Somehow, this super intelligent dolphin is okay with that. It's pretty bullshitty, but... the idea with the Wetworks trope is that, some human or humans or some other creature is a computer in some way, whether they are hooked up or whether they have some sort of... Or even in Johnny Mnemonic again... Johnny himself is a computer because he has ripped out a part of his brain to input, a bunch of storage ports. He basically has he basically is a walking USB stick. That's the purpose of the movie.
Yeah, sure.
I almost said porpoise.
Ba-dum-bum.
But yeah, yeah. So Wet Works is a pretty cool trope, I think.
And I think that actually, as time goes on, that concept of the human brain as a computer, that becomes less and less cyberpunk and more reality as we get into things we actually get into artificial intelligence and stuff.
Google Glass, AI as well. Yeah,
for sure. Like, we don't have a chip in the head yet, but yeah, again, we have smartphones, we have Google Glass, like we have so many things that allow us to come close to that. And while we're still not necessarily there, and I mean, sort of in a way, I kind of hope we never are.
No, yeah, I hope so either.
But like we're getting close to the point where we actually have this, like, the knowledge. We're still really far away from having, like, complete knowledge of the human brain. So don't let me steer you incorrectly there. But we are getting closer and closer to the point where we have, like, at least an understanding of, like, how the brain works. In such a way that we can replicate it in computers. And not in a perfect way, and certainly you can't take a specific person's brain. Artificial intelligence is still kind of a ways off from being, like, human-like. But you end up getting into things like, we didn't touch on, say, anything like the Turing test. Where you end up having, like... Alan Turing creates the Turing test, and the whole point of the Turing test is... a human is sat in front of a computer screen, and they're told they're talking to either a human or an artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And they have to decide, which it is. And I believe it's, and like the better that the artificial intelligence convinces the human, the better, the closer that is to actually being, like, a more perfect artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Man, I'm kind of fucking this one up a little bit.
I know what you're going for, though.
Yeah, but so the idea here is that if the artificial intelligence is indistinguishable from human a certain amount of times, then that artificial intelligence can be said to actually be like close enough to human. I think it's something like 30% of the time. It has to fool people about 30% of the time.
Yeah, sure.
The idea that, like, 50% of the time is that, like, that would mean that it's, like, scoring above, like, chance, so it's, like, almost indistinguishable from human. And it's like, if it was anything more than 50%, then it's like, it's doing better than humans. It's like being more human than human.
Yeah, sure.
But so we end up getting, at this point we have artificial intelligence that's fairly basic, but in these cyberpunk type worlds, you end up having these artificial intelligence that generally transcend what humans are capable of, or are, like, a comfortable level of, like, helpful computer drone robot type things.
Yeah. Also, I was wrong earlier when I said that William Gibson wrote A Scanner Darkly. That was Philip K. Dick.
Oh, okay.
He was the other one as well. So there's actually 4. I should realize that.
Oh, okay.
Addendum to that. Sorry about that. Yeah, go on. So
sure,
yeah. So that's yeah, the idea of, like, talking to an android versus talking to a human is a big deal in cyberpunk genres of stories as well. It's you're right. It's a massive thing, and the way it's portrayed in the test is very interesting as well, because that gives us a lot of foresight into the way things actually could grow into these weird little worlds. The interesting one now, though, is that back then, when Cyberpunk was still in early stages, you would get a lot of like Japanese stuff in there. Like, a lot of people would kind of move towards Japan being the major upringer here, and saying Japan, with their technology, is going to rule the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, even nowadays, like, Japan is kind of a forefront of, like, robotics and stuff. But, I mean, that's also, like, there are plenty of other places in the world that are working on robotics. Like, everyone is trying to build, like, a better android,
Yeah, exactly.
But Japan is obviously very known for being, well ahead in that regard, although still very far away from actually, like, achieving the ultimate goal of creating an artificial intelligence indistinguishable from humans.
Yeah, exactly, and so the way these worlds work, it's the thing is that if somebody created a cyberpunk world at this point in life, I think you would see a lot more people gearing towards American sided technology, or even like more Korean or even Chinese, because China, of course, is now becoming more of a superpower with the whole rare mineral thing, that kind of stuff. Like I can definitely see like a rare mineral war, quote unquote, being a big deal in a cyberpunk story like that. Like, after the whole rare mineral war of whatever year, now we have these technologies because of these reasons, etc., etc. Now government's also depressing us because of these reasons. Duh. But, there have been very few, newer cyberpunk films that have been released, or even stories that have been released. Hunger Games is kind of one of them.
That goes definitely more in towards the... I don't know if I'd call that cyberpunk so much as just a dystopian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That one's fascinating because you get a lot of... It's rural, like, cyberpunk in a way. Because it's not cyberpunk, like you said, but it's a rural sci-fi because you get a lot of, the main focus is on, like, a country girl who grows up to be a revolutionary hero. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And that sort of series, we're coming in, obviously in the middle of this world here, and we get information as time goes on. But part of the idea with it is that, there was this war where, essentially you got, the proletariat tried to rise up against, the evil, nasty corporation dudes.
Totally.
They failed. They didn't succeed, and then the corporations they created this Hunger Games thing to basically just to punish them.
Basically
they're like, well, fuck you. If you want to live in our society, you have to have this thing. Although there's a lot of really cool technology in that world, but it's true, you are seeing it from the eyes of someone who basically doesn't have access to any of that shit. You do have this little country girl who is the ultimate hero of the series.
Yeah.
Rising up and creating rebellion. Hopefully this time they don't end up, failing again, and then they start to implement the punishment soccer.
Yes. Punishment soccer, God. So there are tons of different tropes you can actually look into in cyberpunk films. We've only scratched the surface on these.
But I feel like we've touched on all the major ones. Can you think of anything else that we really didn't touch on? Or I'm sure there's probably some really obvious, glaring movie, film trope, etc. that we didn't touch on. But
arcology is kind of a big one. The idea of basically a city, instead of growing out, goes up.
Yes,
having sky cities where the citizens, the bigger wig citizens are up top, whereas everybody else is down below them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Classism and that kind of stuff.
Classism by literally, having, levels and layers of a city.
I am literally taller than you, and that makes me better.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
It totally is.
Let's see. Police state we worked on. Society's to blame is another big one. We haven't really touched on that, but that's, society's to blame is throughout a lot of the whole thing. You can kind of understand that in any cyberpunk film or piece of work, you can kind of tell that where society has gotten to is not because they did good things to get there.
Well, yeah, the idea here with the main idea behind society is to blame is the idea that we've kind of brought this on ourselves. So in our hubris to create a better machine, we end up bringing around the fucking Terminators.
Yeah. Exactly.
We create Skynet, and the world, the machines are like, "Fuck you." The only way to have this perfect world is to get rid of all the fucking humans because they're lame.
Yep. Now let's see. We talked about false utopia, which we.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about Terminator at all. Actually, it is fairly it's a dystopia, and it's kind of got a cyberpunky sort of element to it.
It's a little more post-apocalyptic, but yeah.
It's true. And most of it happens in the modern day, so...
Yeah.
Before the bad shit even really technically
There
happens.
are elements of cyberpunkness to it, but it's not quite as overt as the other sides.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of loosely stretching for cyberpunk, I think.
Yeah, Terminator borrows a few things here or there, but it's not quite, that. Let's see. Oh, industrial ghetto is a big deal.
Oh yeah, that's a really common trope where you have this like gritty, dirty, rundown, like city or
like in Giant Mnemonic. Actually, like I mentioned the Low-Techs. They live under a bridge, and they have no cybernetic implants, no technology at all, with the exception of like their giant computer and their broadcasting tower and their guns. That's basically it. Like that's all they have for cybernetics, or even technology in general. Actually, there's a cool other thing from Syndicate as well. I can't remember what they're called, but like the way Syndicate works is that when you're born in Syndicate, you are either given a credit card chip into the back of your brain.
Okay.
So now you're jacked in. You're now part of the society. You're not human trash. But if you're not born into a family that can afford this,
well, then you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, that's it. Like basically, they put it in your brain at birth, and you're good to go. But if you can't afford that, then you're never ever going to be anything more than just some guy living under a bridge or in the sewer. And there's a point in the game where, like, basically you kind of lose your cybernetic abilities for a bit, and you actually see the way those people live.
Those poor schlubs.
Yeah, basically. That's the way it's portrayed, where it's like, you know, these guys was down there just kind of, you know, trying to survive and just living in shit, basically. And, yeah, that's
what I feel like every time my battery on my phone is down to about 10%.
You just want to throw it to the side, and you're like, I gotta get a new phone.
Just living on a prayer.
Going to get a new phone right now. Fuck you, phone. I mean, my phone's at like 30% right now, so I shouts it out.
Yeah, basically. It's just trash.
Let's see, Wretched Hive. I'm just going through the TV tropes list right now.
Very classic journalism.
Mega City, Mega Corporations, Metaverse, these are all big deals.
These are really common elements.
Yep. Let's see, brain uploading, we already went into all that. Magical computers, already did that. Online alias, did that too, actually. Schizophrenic technology is also a big one as well. System Shock. System Shock 2. Those games, even though they are not quite Cyberpunk, more space space horror, I guess. They deal with an AI who's going crazy. And the AI thinks they are basically, I guess, in a way, they think they're somebody else, but they're going crazy because nobody has been up there to really program them to think otherwise.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. And schizophrenic technology is a very interesting trope. Or even your GLaDOS, actually. That character, GLaDOS, is crazy as shit.
Yeah, that'd be a good example of the schizophrenic technology. That Portal itself wouldn't exactly be a good example of a cyberpunk world, but she's a great example of a schizophrenic computer.
Yes.
Schizophrenic technology.
Yep.
I just thought of a thing that we didn't... not a trope per se, but Transistor is actually a really great cyberpunk video game.
You're right.
So that just came out last year. So we haven't talked about that maybe nearly as much as I would have liked to. Transistor is really great. I feel like it kind of got swept under the rug in many ways. People sort of were like, it's no Bastion. And that was kind of the end of it.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was no Bastion, but at the same time, Transistor was its own little beast. Transistor is interesting because it deals with transhumanism, deals with a lot of like the classism.
You have this sort of idea where the city itself seems to actually be inside a computer.
Yep. And then on top of that, also has the robot uprising as well. It actually borrows a lot of tropes from the cyberpunk genre in general. So, like, Transistor is actually a great place to go if you want a taste of, cyberpunkness.
Well, it's kind of a taste of transhumanism turned cyberpunk.
Yeah. There's actually cool little tropes of transhumanism in Transistor that I like between the two main characters. So the Transistor, of course, is a big one because that was stabbed into your boyfriend, and now his soul is in the sword, the Transistor. The other one that I like is also, it's reverse transhumanism because Red, the main character, she loses her voice. She's a singer. And Cyberpunk actually deals with a lot with the loss of an ability and how do you regain that. Like Blackjack has that, Phoenix has that, like Osamu Tezuka deals with that quite a bit in his stories. There's quite a bit of transhumanism in that game.
At this point, I can't think of anything that we haven't covered that isn't really a big thing, or we haven't skipped some sort of like super relevant piece of sci-fi. Or Cyberpunk, rather. So, unless there's any sort of closing comments you got, I think we should probably wrap this one up.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cyberpunk genre in general is a lot of fun. It's a very interesting series of worlds.
It can be very philosophical, which is really interesting because there's not a lot of genres that are sort of based in this philosophy, although that's not necessarily always the execution.
Yeah.
But you do get a lot. So say an example, and then social commentary is, which is kind of the ultimate goal, I think, of good philosophical fiction, where you have some sort of take home sort of statement of the thing. So with if it's not like a philosophical sort of statement, it's like a social commentary. So you're saying with Syndicate, you have this sort of classism sort of thing. There's a social commentary aspect in that. In Transistor, it's this whole idea of kind of what it's like to be human, or accepting this sort of transcending human sort of thing.
Sure.
Though maybe unintentional or unwarranted.
Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah.
But yeah, so you have many. The nice thing about the genre is that you can touch on a lot of really cool philosophical elements that aren't necessarily practical or commonplace in other sort of forms of fiction or literature.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, like I said, Cyberpunk is a very interesting world. It's it touches on a few things that are very philosophical, a lot of brain twisty things, but for the most part, it's just meant to be there for fun. Depends who you go to, I guess.
I don't know, my Cyberpunk is got deep, dark philosophical brooding, and there's leather trench coats, and we're trying to take down the man. That's my Cyberpunk.
My Cyberpunk, literally my Cyberpunk is actually about the way police work is done in the future.
So you're talking about Psychopaths, is what you mean?
Well, and my novel I'm working on.
Oh, yes, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, my novel is actually a bit of a cyberpunk genre thing as well, because it's about the way certain police officers will treat certain aspects of society and that kind of thing.
How they will work certain cases.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it follows those police officers and how it works. Anyway, I think that's all we have for this week. There won't be... Well, there might be an ending to Cyberpunk Month in terms of the actual review show. Don't count on it? Sorry?
It's too bad, but unfortunately we've just been having a lot of really, really nasty weather problems around here lately.
It's been really shitty, yeah.
Yeah, Greg has literally been just kind of, not snowed in per se, but he can't get his car really out. Hassan obviously has had every version of car trouble you can have based on winter, so...
Yeah, Greg lives on top of a hill, basically.
Yeah,
so if his driveway is at all in any way icy or slick, he cannot leave the driveway with his car because it won't get back up the driveway. He can get down fine. It's getting back up he just won't be able to do. So yeah, that's a problem. And I have a hard time getting there as well because, of course, going up this driveway and up that hill on foot is equally as hard. So that's the problem. So I can't go to him. He has a hard time getting here, etc., etc. We're going to figure some stuff out. I think we're going to have to be doing some Skype stuff in the future. But that's for us to figure out and think about later on. So tune in next week when hopefully Hassan's going to be back with a fixed-up car. I don't know, maybe.
Or we can talk more about our Hassonas.
Yeah, my Hassona, like I said, one black wing, one white wing. And my hat is half red and half blue.
I have a green... I'm a green Hassan.
Okay.
And I have big titties.
That's fair.
But they're big felt titties.
Oh, big felt titties. Okay, yeah.
Big felt titties. That's cool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how would you know I'm a female Hassan?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's my female Hassan.
Do they jiggle a lot like in DOA 5?
Well, as much as felt. As much realism as DOA felt titties can give.
So very realistic.
Very realistic.
Good. Alright, see ya.
Hey.